I was 27 when I met Ethan at a rooftop bar in Williamsburg. The kind of place where everyone pretends they're too cool to care, but still angles their phone for the skyline. He was leaning against the railing. Tall, dark hair, wearing a charcoal button-down that fit him like he'd been poured into it. We locked eyes while the DJ played some remix of The Weeknd, and within 10 minutes, he was buying me a Mezcal Negroni and telling me that he had just closed a round of funding for his fintech startup. Classic Brooklyn finance bro, but he had this half smile that made my stomach flip. 3 days later, we were at his loft in Dumbo, the Hudson glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. He called me babe by week 2, left a toothbrush at my place by week 4. I met his friends at a Knicks game. He met mine at a drag brunch in Bushwick. Everything felt easy. Then, about 8 months in, we're lying in bed on a lazy Sunday, sheets tangled around our ankles. Out of nowhere, he asks, "So, how many people have you been with? Like, total?" I froze. My real number at that point was 34. Maybe 35. I'd lost exact count somewhere around grad school. And honestly, I never felt bad about it. I like doing it. I like men. I like the way a new person feels. The way someone can surprise you when you least expect it. But I knew how this conversation usually went. I'd learned the hard way that most guys want the Madonna or Cardi B. Never both, and never a woman who owns her history without apology. So I lied. Like 9, I said, making it sound bored, like it barely mattered. He nodded slowly, doing mental math. I'm at 7. Guess I've got some catching up to do. I laughed it off, changed the subject, but I felt the shift immediately. Something possessive flickered across his face, like he just claimed new territory. For the next 3 years, he never let it go. Not outright. He never asked again, but it lived between us like a third person in the bed. He'd make these little comments. "God, you move like someone taught you really well." "Thanks, I taught myself," I replied. He didn't laugh. Or when we ran into an ex of mine at a gallery opening in Chelsea. "That guy? Really? He looks like he cries after doing it." I just sipped my wine and smiled. He started keeping score without telling me. If I went out with my girls and came home late, he'd ask who I talked to, how many drinks, did anyone buy me one? Never accusing, just cataloging. I told myself that it was insecurity, that he'd get over it. I loved the way he looked at me when I walked into a room. I loved how he grabbed me like he was trying to erase every man who had ever touched me. I told myself that was passion. Then, one Thursday in October, 3 years and 2 months in, I came home from work and he was sitting on the couch with a glass of bourbon, staring at nothing. "We need to talk," he said. I knew. I just knew. He told me he couldn't do it anymore, that he'd been thinking about my 9 for years, and it made him feel small. That he was supposed to be the one with more experience, that a man should have a higher body count, that every time he pictured the 8 guys before him and it made him want to throw up. He actually said that. "It makes me want to throw up." I laughed in his face. Couldn't help it. "Ethan, you're breaking up with me because my fake number bruised your fragile little ego?" He got red. "It's not fake. I know you lied." "How could you possibly know that?" "Because no one eats banana like that. No one." I should have thrown his Xbox out of the window. Instead, I packed a bag and left that night. Slept on my friend Maya's couch and cried. Not because I missed him yet, but because I was so angry at myself for shrinking my life to make him feel tall. 6 months later, I'm finally feeling human again. I'd been with 4 different guys in that time. 5 if you count the one who could only move for like 30 seconds. Poor thing. I was living in a sunny 1-bedroom up in Fort Greene, doing yoga, therapy, the whole post-breakup glow-up. Then, my phone lights up. "Ethan, Hey, been thinking about you. Can we get coffee? I stared at it for a full day before I answered. Curiosity, mostly. And yeah, maybe a little vengeance. We met at Butler on South Portland. He looked good. New haircut. Wearing that same charcoal shirt like he knew what it did to me. He stood when I walked in. Hugged me too long. I messed up, he said before I even sat down. I was an idiot. I've been with 3 women since we broke up. 3. So now I'm at 10. That's 1 more than you. I needed to feel like I caught up. I needed to know I was enough. I almost choked on my oat milk latte. You needed to be with 3 more women to feel like a man again? He looked earnest. I know it sounds insane, but yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Now I have, and I just want you back. We were good. We were really good. I let him talk. Let him tell me how much he missed me, how the other girls meant nothing. When he finally stopped, I leaned forward. Ethan, you still think my number is 9? He nodded, cautious. I smiled. Baby, I lied. It was 34 when we met. 39 now. His face went white. Yeah, you'd need 30 more women just to break even with where I was 3 years ago. And sweetheart, I haven't exactly been knitting in my spare time. I left him sitting there with his mouth open and walked out into the spring sunshine. My phone buzzed before I even reached the corner. It was Ethan. You're lying. You have to be. I blocked his number, ordered an Uber, and went to meet this drummer from Tinder who had been texting me for a week. These days, if a guy asks my number on the first date, second date, 10th date, I just smile and say, more than you, less than tomorrow. And if he pushes, if I see that flicker of ego, that need to be the highest on some imaginary leaderboard, I'm out. No drama, no speech. I just ghost, delete, move on. Because I finally learned what Ethan never did. My count isn't a threat to a man's masculinity unless his masculinity is paper thin. And I'm done dating tissues. Turns out that the only number that matters is 1. The number of times I chose myself. And that 1 keeps going up.
I dated Leo for 3 wonderful years. He was a kind man, loving, attentive. He really took care of me. But after our 3rd anniversary, things changed. I got a new job that paid more money, which meant that I was out of the house a lot more. Leo supported my decision, and he never told me he was upset. But he did start acting differently. He was petulant and needy. He texted me all the time to see where I was. And when I didn't respond right away, he freaked out. He wasn't the same person anymore. And every time I tried to talk to him about it, he'd say that everything was fine and I was overreacting. Eventually it got to be too much. I told him if he didn't see a therapist, I was going to leave him. His reaction scared me. He started pacing around the room and pulling at his hair.
If you leave me, I'll kill myself. I really will, and it'll be your fault.
I couldn't believe that this was the man I fell in love with. He'd never shown any glimmers of this kind of mania before. I had to calm him down. I told him I wasn't going to leave him. That was the only way I could get him out of his episode. Afterward, I scheduled his appointment with a therapist that my friend had recommended. He didn't give me any pushback, and after his first meeting, he seemed relaxed and a little bit closer to his old self. He still acted needy and anxious, but I knew he was making progress. For the next 2 weeks, he went back to the therapist every Tuesday and Thursday. He refused to tell me what they talked about, so I stopped asking. Unfortunately, his progress stopped. In fact, he seemed even more manic than before. He started leaving work early so he could surprise me at home. He would make dinner for me and would try to please me all the time. It was honestly scary. I knew he wouldn't hurt me, but I was worried that his hormone imbalance, or whatever it was, would make him hurt himself. So I called his therapist. I told him he didn't have to break their therapist-client privilege, but I needed to know if Leo was ever going to get better. I was not expecting the therapist's response. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there's been some confusion. Leo isn't my patient. You called me right before his first session and canceled. Don't you remember?" What the hell? This whole time, Leo lied to me about seeing the doctor? Where was he going every week? When Leo got home that evening, I demanded the truth. "I've been visiting family. It's no big deal. I can talk to them about anything. They're a lot more helpful than some shrink." This was the last straw. He lied to my face for weeks, and worse, he got his family involved. I was pretty sure his sister Lauren was the one who called the therapist and canceled. And knowing their messed up dynamics, Leo probably spent every therapist session at Lauren's house listening to her tell him that I was the problem. "Leo, I can't do this anymore. You refuse to get help. We're done." I know that sounds blunt, but if I said anything else, I'd let my emotions get the most of me. I'd start crying. Right away, I packed up my stuff and moved out. I went to stay at my brother's house to figure stuff out. As I left, Leo screamed at me to stay. He kept saying I'd regret leaving him, but it was over. I did all I could to help him. For the next few days, I tried to focus on my work and enjoy my time with my brother and his kids. I didn't hear anything from Leo. And then the weekend rolled around, and Lauren showed up at my brother's house. She looked furious. She shoved a piece of paper into my face. It was a goodbye note from Leo. A really long one, too. I didn't read the whole thing, but Leo basically wrote about all the ways I drove him over the edge. He talked about fights we had, ways I sabotaged his friendships, moments of jealousy, all things that never happened. Lauren, of course, believed it all. Worst, she assumed it was a suicide note.
"I'm gonna make you pay for this!"
Right there on my porch, she pulled out her phone and called the police. If she truly cared about her brother, she would have called them as soon as she found the note. But no, she wanted to make a scene. She wanted me to be there. And when the police arrived, she pointed at me and blamed me for everything. The note backed her up, obviously. And what could I say? My boyfriend was missing, presumably dead, and I couldn't tell them that he lied in his note. That would make me seem like a liar. The police asked me a bunch of questions and I was honest. I kept things basic. We broke up. I hadn't seen him in days. I had no idea where he'd go. They set out a search for him, but I could tell that they blamed me. It sure seemed like I'd driven him to suicide. The next day, they found his car on the side of the river. It was all over the news. Worse, Lauren and her entire family were posting videos blaming me. Logically, I knew it wasn't my fault. But all the anger from the entire community was really getting to me. Logically, I knew it wasn't my fault. But all the anger from the entire community was really getting to me. I had to stay off social media and stop answering my calls. It was awful. Even my brother didn't fully believe my side of the story. I never felt so alone. That weekend, I went to Leo's favorite diner, hoping that just being there would help me find some closure. And you won't believe who I saw there. Leo was sitting in a corner booth. He wore sunglasses and a hat to hide his identity, but it was definitely him. And he was sitting with Lauren. I watched them eat and laugh.
"What the hell? Baby, hey, I'm alive!"
I demanded to know what was going on, and he immediately blamed his sister for everything. He said it was her idea to fake his suicide, and once I got to my lowest point, he'd wander out of the woods and act like he'd been lost the whole time. Then I'd be so grateful that he was still alive that I'd take him back. I dumped hot coffee into his lap and stormed out of there. I refused to be in the same room as him ever again. Once I got out of the restaurant, I regained my composure and took a photo of them through the window. That's what I took to the police. They were both arrested for conspiracy and filing a false report. I don't know if they got any jail time. And honestly, I don't care. I've moved on.
I still think about that night in Vienna every time I book a red-eye flight alone. I replay it like a movie I wish I could walk out of, but I can't. 23, 5'6" in sneakers, long, dark hair, the kind of face that gets me, "You should model more often than I like," was flying from Vienna to Berlin for a 6 a.m. flight after a long weekend with friends. The train from Vinita to the airport was almost empty at 10:47 p.m. I had my pink carry-on roller and a backpack, scrolling TikTok with one AirPod in, when this guy sat across from me. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, navy pea coat. He smiled like he already knew me. "Big suitcase for a little girl," he said, nodding at my bag. His English was perfect, just a soft Austrian lilt. I laughed, because that's what I do when older men flirt in that dad joke way. I'm used to getting hit on because I am absolutely pretty and have this sexy aura overall. "I'm Lucas. I'm flying out tomorrow too. Recurrent training at CAE. You headed home?" "Berlin for one night, then back to the States. I'm Mia." We talked the whole ride. He told me about his daughter in Graz, who's basically your age. How his ex-wife got the house and the divorce. How he hates hotel coffee. I told him about my boyfriend Ethan back in Chicago. How we met on Hinge. How he's doing his residency and we barely see each other. I don't know why I overshared. Something about night trains makes everyone confess. When he heard I was camping at the airport until check-in opened at 4 a.m., he lit up. No, you can't do that. Come with me to the crew lounge at the NH Hotel. It's literally attached to the terminal. Sofas, snacks, quiet. I have access." I hesitated for half a second, but he showed me his airline ID. Lucas Keller, captain, Austrian Airlines, photo and everything. And there were still people on the platform when we got off. My feet hurt, my eyes burned, and the idea of a couch sounded like heaven. Okay, but just for a little bit. He smiled like he'd won something. "You'll thank me." The hotel was 2 minutes from the CAT terminal. He swiped us through a side door marked crew only, down a hallway. The lounge was actually gorgeous. Low lighting, leather sectionals, an espresso machine, baskets of pretzels, and those little Milka bars. 2 crew members were there. A woman in her 30s with a messy bun, and a guy with a beard, both in uniform, laughing about some passenger who had tried to bring a live turkey on board. I exhaled so hard I almost cried. "This is insane. Thank you." Lucas shrugged like it was nothing. "Told you." I kicked off my sneakers, curled up on the corner couch, and started charging my phone. The woman, Anna, offered me a blanket. It felt like the universe had finally thrown me a bone. And that's when Lucas crouched next to me, voice low. "You know, it's still noisy here. If you really want to sleep, I have a room upstairs. King bed, shower, blackout curtains. You could actually rest before your flight." My stomach flipped. "Oh, that's so nice, but I'm good here. Seriously." He didn't move. His hand settled on my shoulder. "Oh, come on, Mia. You're exhausted. I'll even stay in the lobby so you can have the room to yourself." "No, really, this is perfect." But he kept smiling, that same warm dad smile from the train, only now it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll feel gross flying without a shower. I don't mind. We're adults." I could feel Anna and the guy glance over and then pretend they hadn't. The partition half hit us. My heart started doing that thing where it forgets how to beat normal beats. "I have a boyfriend," I said. Dumbest sentence ever. Lucas tilted his head. "He's in Chicago. He'll never know. You can FaceTime him from the hallway if you want." The way he said it, so reasonable, so light, made the hairs on my arms stand up. Like we were negotiating Uber surge pricing, not whether I was going to a hotel room with a stranger twice my age. I stood up fast, knocking my phone off the couch. "No, thank you. I'm staying here." His fingers tightened on my arm just for a second, and then let go with a soft laugh. Okay. You're a good girl." He stood, still smiling. "If you change your mind, room 412. Door'll be unlocked till midnight." He walked out like we had just talked about the weather. I sat back down. Anna caught my eye, raised an eyebrow like, "Are you okay?" I forced a thumbs up I definitely did not feel. 5 minutes later, I was speed walking through the night to the actual airport, dragging my suitcase behind me like it weighed 500 pounds. I kept checking over my shoulder, convinced I'd see his Navy code in every shadow. I didn't relax until I was through security and parked at my gate with a $9 airport cappuccino, wrapped in my own jacket like a blanket. My 6 a.m. flight boarded without incident. I slept the whole way to Berlin, drooling on the window. But here's the part that still guts me. When I landed, I had a new follower request on Instagram. Private account, no posts, display name L. Keller. Profile photo, him in uniform, smiling straight at the camera. I blocked him so fast my thumb cramped. I still travel alone. I'm not going to let one predator ruin Wanderlust for me. But I don't smile back quite as fast anymore, and I keep my AirPods out on night trains. And if a man offers me anything that sounds too good to be true, especially if he's wearing a pilot's uniform and a gentle smile, I say no the first time. Loud, and I don't feel bad about it. Because the thing they don't tell you about wolves is sometimes they don't have sharp teeth. Sometimes they have airline miles and a daughter your age and a laugh that reminds you of your uncle. I had a hard life. My parents gave up on me when I was born, so I bounced around from foster home to foster home. Outside of my first one, they were all horrible. I was an angry kid. I couldn't help it. I lashed out at people and picked fights. I broke things when I got upset. I did a lot of stuff that I knew was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. It was like my anger took over my body, and I tried to hurt the world for hurting me. A lot of that had to do with my potential. I was always the smartest kid at every foster home. Honestly, I was smarter than all of my foster parents. If I had grown up in a stable household, I probably would have gone to some fancy school and become a doctor. I think that was the root of a lot of my anger. I knew that I could have been special if I had a real family to support me. In my senior year of high school, I applied to a bunch of scholarships. I had great grades, even though I worked after school, and a few of my teachers looked past my rough edges and saw my potential. They wrote some letters of recommendation. Despite my limitations, I got into the college of my dreams. I couldn't pay for it, obviously, and was this close to giving up when I got a call from an organization that was interested in sponsoring my tuition. Nancy, the lady on the phone, said that my personal statement about growing up in foster homes had really impressed her. She said I had the life experiences needed to become a caring, compassionate doctor. Nancy invited me to a fundraiser luncheon where I could meet her and the rest of the scholarship board. It felt too good to be true. After a lifetime of disappointments, I finally caught a break. I was so freaking happy. I put on my best suit, practiced everything that I was going to say, and took the bus to the convention center. As I walked down the street, I passed a couple of guys that I sort of recognized. I think that they went to my high school before dropping out. They saw my nice clothes and started laughing at me. I tried to ignore them, but one of the guys tugged on my tie. That's when my anger took over. I took a swing at him. Before I knew it, I was fighting 3 guys, screaming and punching and tearing at their clothes. I was like an animal. I hadn't gotten this violent in a long time. 2 of the guys ran off, but the third one, the one who tugged my tie, wouldn't leave. He pushed me. A woman shouted for us to stop, but I physically couldn't. I shoved the guy as hard as I could. He fell back, but that woman had gotten too close. I accidentally knocked her over in the struggle. She fell to the side. Her arm smacked against the building hard enough to make her bone crack. The other guy freaked out and ran, leaving me standing above the woman. Seeing her lying there, cradling her wounded arm, all of my anger went away. I felt awful. Worse, I knew that I had just screwed up my one opportunity in life. I crouched down to see if she was okay. Jeremy? I recognized her face. She was Nancy, my first foster mother, the only parental figure who was actually nice to me. She gave me up when I was 6, but before then, she was the kindest person I ever met. And that's when I connected the dots. The woman on the phone was named Nancy, too. My former foster mother and the head of the scholarship board were the same person. And I had just broken her arm. I am so sorry. Other people were standing around us. The rest of the scholarship board, apparently. Some of them helped Nancy to her feet, but the rest were glaring at me. I thought you had potential, Jeremy. I didn't have enough money to provide for you back then, but when I saw your application, I knew this was my chance to help you. But you... I kept apologizing, but it didn't matter. The ambulance took her away right afterward, and the scholarship people told me to go home. I didn't. I couldn't. I walked all the way to the hospital. Not to beg for a second chance, but to make sure that Nancy was okay. I was never meant to be a doctor. I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. What mattered was that the one person who tried to show me kindness would be okay. At the hospital, I asked the nurse for Nancy's room number. She wouldn't give it to me, so I walked around until I found her. She was lying in bed with a cast on her arm. I went into her room trying not to cry, and thanked her for trying to help me even though I didn't deserve it. She waved me over. With her free arm, she wiped the tears off my face. You're a good boy. Never forget that. That one comment made me feel so much better. I sat next to her and we talked. She asked me all these questions about my life. I told her everything, even the bad stuff. For the first time ever, I felt like I had a real mom. Nancy forgave me. She said that she'd give me the scholarship if she could, but it wasn't her decision. And after what happened, there was no way that the rest of the board would give their money to someone like me. I understood. But you'll be okay. I know you will. You just have to learn to control your anger. I promise. As I held her hand, the doctor came in to check on her cast. Nancy introduced us, and asked the doctor to take a look at my hand. All of this time, I hadn't noticed that my knuckles were scratched and bloody. He bandaged me up free of charge. You know, I was a lot like you. I used to get into fights all the time. That one comment meant a lot to me. I'm in community college now, acing all of my classes. Pretty soon, I'll have enough saved up for a state school. Then, I'll take out some loans and I'll go to medical school. I call Nancy every week to tell her how I'm doing. And I haven't gotten into a fight since.
I met a really hot guy named Tyson on OkCupid. We chatted for a bit, and he seemed like the perfect guy. Handsome, successful, funny. I'd just gotten out of a horrible relationship with my ex-boyfriend Raymond, and I really needed to get back into the dating scene. We arranged to meet up on a Friday night. I got a new outfit, a haircut, and determined to make a good first impression. We were supposed to meet at a fancy fresh restaurant in town, but when I pulled into the parking lot, I saw that the building was closed. Tyson stood at the entrance with an apologetic look in his face. I'm so sorry, he said. Today's Bastille Day over in France, so I guess it's closed? I thought you made a reservation. He shrugged. If you weren't so handsome, I'd be really annoyed. He pointed over to a McDonald's across the street and asked if we could go there instead. I was way overdressed for a fast food restaurant, and I did not want to eat burgers and fries on a first date. But I didn't want to come across as difficult, so I nodded and we walked across the street. I hadn't been inside a McDonald's in years. I didn't eat red meat, and I hated anything greasy. When we got to the counter, I ordered chicken nuggets and a Coke. Tyson got a combo meal. When we sat down, Tyson apologized for how the night was turning out. I assured him that everything was okay, but I think he could tell I was annoyed. We chatted for a while as they made our food, and my annoyance quickly disappeared. Tyson seemed like such an interesting person. He told me all about his job as a speech therapist and his travels through Europe. Even though we were all alone in a greasy-smelling McDonald's, I was really enjoying our time together. We got our food and I ate a couple of nuggets before giving up. I didn't like them. Tyson wasn't eating much either. Slowly, the conversation shifted towards my life. Tyson asked me about my job and my family. My life wasn't nearly as exciting as his, especially since I'd spent the last few years with Raymond. One of the worst parts about our relationship was how he stopped me from doing anything that I wanted to do. When I was still with Raymond, we always hung out with his friends, did what he wanted to do. He'd constantly make fun of my interests. It felt so great to finally talk to a guy who seemed genuinely curious about my life. Things were going so well, until Tyson asked me about my sister, Tara. I immediately knew that something was wrong. How did he know my sister's name? I tried to think back of our text messages. Maybe I mentioned Tara and forgot about it? I had to be certain. So I said, "She's still in Nebraska. She's doing great." "Oh," Tyson said. "I thought she lived in Washington." She did. The Nebraska comment was a lie, and now I knew for sure that Tyson was keeping tabs on me. He looked confused. "What's wrong?" "How do you know where my sister lives?" Tyson nervously looked around the restaurant. Then he looked me right in the eyes and said, "I'm sorry." I didn't know what was going on, but I felt unsafe. I threw down my napkin and walked towards the door. "Wait," he called after me. I didn't. I pushed open the door. Tyson jumped out of his chair and raced towards me. He grabbed me by the shoulders and pulled me back inside. "Get off me!" I screamed. The cashier was in the kitchen, and I prayed that he could hear my screams and come running. "Stop," Tyson said, as I struggled to pull out of his grip. "Just listen, okay?" "Who are you?" I demanded. "I'm Tyson," he said. "I didn't lie to you about that, but your boyfriend Raymond, he's my cousin. He convinced me to take you here." Now that his face was close to mine, I could see the resemblance. Tyson had the same dark, wide-set eyes as my ex. I pushed him with all my strength and ran back toward the door. "He's waiting outside," Tyson screamed. I froze, slowly turning around. "That was part of his plan," Tyson explained. "I'd lure you here, and then when you left, he'd grab you from the parking lot. He wants his money back." "His money?" Tyson explained that I drained my ex-boyfriend's bank account and ran away with all his money. None of that was true, of course. Raymond had lied to him about everything. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I know you've taken thousands of dollars, but I can't be a part of this." "What made you change your mind?" "I don't know, getting to know you. Even though you made mistakes, you still seem like a good person," he said. The McDonald's worker still hadn't come out of the kitchen. We were alone in the restaurant, and Raymond was lurking somewhere outside. I stood my ground and waited for Tyson to back up a bit. Eventually, he did. Slowly, I explained that everything that his cousin told him was wrong. I never stole from Raymond. I left because he was a controlling, abusive jerk. I could tell by his expression that he finally believed me. Even though Raymond was his relative, Tyson took my word over his. He apologized for putting me in this situation and promised that he'd protect me. Together, we walked outside to talk to Raymond. With Tyson next to me, I didn't feel afraid. I could tell that he was a much better person than his cousin. I saw someone move behind the dumpsters. I knew it was Raymond waiting for me. "Let me talk to him alone," Tyson offered. "No," I said. "We'll talk to him together." We both walked towards the dumpsters, but the man who was standing there wasn't Raymond. He was the McDonald's worker. He spun around when we approached him with both his hands raised in the air, like he'd been caught in the middle of a crime. "It was an accident. I swear. I was just taking out the trash. I didn't see him." Tyson and I ran over to the dumpster to look inside and almost threw up. Raymond was in the dumpster. I guess that was his hiding spot. A large broken microwave was embedded into the side of his head. When the worker had thrown it out, he dropped it right on Raymond, killing him. I looked at Tyson, who was sitting down in horror at his dead cousin, as he started to cry. I called 911 and explained what happened. Thankfully, the worker wasn't charged for any crimes, and Raymond's death was ruled an accident. This all happened months ago. Tyson and I are actually still together. He's a much better boyfriend than Raymond.